Jethro was saying, not only is this not good for you, you're going to burn yourself out, but you're going to frustrate all these people. Okay. And if you're the type of leader leading your business, leading your teams, leading your company, you think you're doing a good job, but you're burning yourself out. And guess what? Your whole team sees it.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Business in the Bible. It is good to be with you all. I'm Kyle DiGiacomo. You see Tim Corden here with me and Darren Manzari. And we got a couple corners of the United States covered right now. So thank God for Zoom and the ability to do this. We're excited to continue on in this study. Our mission is to empower entrepreneurs with the time-tested biblical principles that God has provided for us in His Word. We believe that God really has provided everything that we need in order to run our businesses according to the way that He really wants to. So that's our goal here, is to dig into Scripture to find out, okay, God, how do you want me to run my business? How do you want me to conduct myself? How can I really honor you with this thing? One of the things that I constantly find myself praying is, I believe it's in one of the Proverbs that it says that if you commit your works to the Lord, He will establish your thoughts and direct your steps. And so I constantly find myself praying, God, I commit my business to you, my contracting business, and I just ask you, Lord, would you establish my thoughts and would you direct my steps? And so that's part of our hope here with Business in the Bible, is to show you what those principles are that God has provided. Last time that we met, we got into a little bit of Exodus chapter 18 and what we call the Jethro principle, which is that Moses is the leader of these millions of Israelites, and he finds himself in a place where he every single day, sun up to sundown, is sitting and judging the disputes of the people. And his father-in-law Jethro comes along and says, "Oh, wait a second, this isn't good. Moses, if you keep doing this, you're going to crash and burn." And so we talked about the importance of, one, having that person in your life and in your business that has the relational equity with you, that they can come to you and say, "Hey, what you're doing is not good. Let's talk." And then we talked about the importance of, as a business leader or owner, not getting pigeonholed into doing one thing all day, every day. That's not good. You really can't run a business effectively like that. And so we talked about just really the importance of those two things, having the person around you that can help you see what you don't see, and then the importance of really trusting their input. And so, as we continue on in Exodus chapter 18 here, we're going to see really the importance of delegating here. And this is one of my favorite things that you teach, Mr. Manzari, in your operator to owner classes. Mostly it's my favorite because it's the thing that I've struggled with the worst. We talked about my tendency to think like only I am going to caulk the trim as well as anybody. So nobody's going to do it as well as I will, so I'll just do it. And if we look at
Well, who do you teach those classes to, Darren? Because I'm sure Kyle was the only one that has that problem.
No, that is a common problem. It's funny. Most businesses that you go into, as small businesses, big businesses, it doesn't matter. Leaders have a problem with delegation, and there are a couple that don't, but it's few and far between. That's why when I do teach the operator owner class, that's the first class. Like literally, welcome to operator owner. Let's talk about
let's
this.
get your pen and paper. Yeah.
Yes. And it's very eye-opening for all the businesses that I do that with.
Yeah, it's so good. It's funny. I've debated whether or not to bring this up lately, but I've seen this honestly even with my wife in our house lately. She stays at home with our youngest daughter, and my wife has totally gotten to the point where she is fully convinced that I cannot do the laundry as well as her. I cannot do the dishes as well as her. And I'm like, Jamie, you've got to let us help you with some of this stuff, or you're going to lose your mind.
Yes.
So.
That
I'm
that
telling
sounds
you. Say,
wonderful to me.
what you were doing is not good, just like Jethro.
Right, exactly. And it's funny because it totally drives like this angst. And I've seen it with myself too in my business of like, oh gosh, there's so much to do and I've got to do it all. So what do I do? It's just a dangerous place to be.
It's funny that you said that because something as simple as loading the dishwasher, right? And you could watch someone else load the dishwasher and you're like, oh, I put the plates differently. And I put the spoons not next to each other so they're not spooning so water can't between, right? And,
Yep.
and we have a tendency where we want to jump in and micromanage this, right? And think if you're even thinking that way on something so small as loading the dishwasher,
Mhm.
imagine in business how much you're thinking that way,
Yeah.
right?
Hang on a second, because you struck a nerve with me. Because there's an argument that goes down in my house fairly regularly. Because my wife likes to load the dishwasher from the shortest route, right? And and every time you open it up, I'm like, now I gotta open it up and go all the way to the far corner with everything. Why don't you start in the far corner and all the hard work's out of the way, and then work your way back towards yourself? And
Right.
so, so we get into it about that. She chooses not to ever listen.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed.
Things change. It's so funny though. I mean, well, to me, it reiterates just the inherent difference between men and women. Like there's so many examples of that you see in marriage. Like, how can anybody dispute this? But it's just funny.
So after we're done with this, maybe we should, create a second one called dishwashers in the Bible, right?
Right, right. God's way to load the dishwasher.
Correct. But no, again, it just shows you that if you want to get involved watching someone else load the dishwasher, right? So let's put it this way: if you're watching this right now, right? Let's get everybody involved in this, Kyle. Right. So you're in your own house watching this, or you're on your phone. Just put your hand up, right? We can't see you anyway, right? So just put your hand up if you're one of these people that micromanage other people loading the dishwasher, right? And or does it bother you at least, right? And if it does, how is that? Take that now to your business. Take
Yeah.
that now to work. Take that now to your employees, because if it's as simple as the dishwasher you're getting involved in, then what are you getting involved in that you don't need to be getting involved in business?
Yeah.
So
And this is the perfect lead into our first verses here in Exodus 18. So if you look at verse 15 with me there, um,
can, Kyle, before you go, do you mind if I derail you for a second?
go for
so so I know you're
He hasn't got on the rails yet, Darren. You can't
it.
derail
I,
him.
I want to clear something up, because you said something in the opening statement that I believe not only you, but most of the people who are watching this right now probably interpret this the same way. And we're talking about the Jethro principle here. And Kyle, in the opening, you said, he looked at Moses and he said, look, like what you're doing is not good, and you're going to burn out. And I'm paraphrasing what you said, but that's pretty much the understanding. Right. And again, to get the people watching this involved, how many people understand the Jethro principle that way? Right. If you've studied the Jethro principle, you probably know that Jethro is talking to Moses about this, and this is representative of leadership and things like that. But honestly, that's just a small part of it, right? Because if you really read the verse, and I'm going to paraphrase, I don't have my Bible open in front of me, so I'm sorry about that. You think I'd open my Bible for a Bible study, right? I should have done that, but because we're on the computer, I didn't do that. So I'm going to paraphrase this, unless someone has their Bible open, you want to read it. But it says, what you are doing, it is not good for Moses and the people, right? If you have your Bible open, go ahead and read that for me.
Yeah. Verse 14, it says, when Moses' father-in-law saw all that Moses was doing for the people, he asked, what are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do all this alone while everyone stands around you? Let me see if I can jump to, oh yeah, verse 17 says, this is not good, Moses' father-in-law exclaimed. So it doesn't necessarily say what you're doing is not good for you. Let me see if I'm wondering what translation you.
So in 18, if you go one step further,
Mhm.
well, then this is the King James, right? It says, "Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that are with thee."
Mhm.
Okay. So there it is. If you have NIV, read 18 in NIV, Kyle, and see what it says there. And if not,
Yeah.
I should open my Bible anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. At verse 18, you're right, Tim. It does say you're going to wear yourself out and the people too.
And the people. Okay.
Mhm.
And this is what a lot of people who even study the Jethro principle miss, is that they think he was just talking to Moses, but Jethro wasn't going to burn yourself out,
Mhm.
but you're going to frustrate all these people. Okay. And if you're the type of leader leading your business, leading your teams, leading your company, you think you're doing a good job, but you're burning yourself out. And guess what? Your whole team sees it. And your whole team is frustrated with it. And you know, Kyle's guys are saying, why can't I lay the clocking?
Yeah.
Right? So they're getting frustrated with it. And because what happens is you're holding the whole team back, you're holding the whole company back. And everything is going through you. So it's not just you that's being affected and burning yourself out, but you're hurting the team, you're hurting the company, you're hurting your customers, you're hurting everybody.
Mhm.
Okay. And that's what Jethro was trying to say, is what you're doing is not good, but it's not good on so many levels. Right. And even though we're talking about Moses and our focus is there, and yes, it's not good for Moses, but let's talk about how your poor leadership is affecting your team, is affecting your company, is affecting your consumers. Right.
Yeah.
Because that's really what's happening here.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It leads me back to, John Maxwell always says, and my wife is sick of me hearing me say this, but he says, everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes.
And I've lived my life by that because I've seen it. That principle just simply proves itself over and over and over again. That if your leadership is failing, then the whole organism, the whole organization is failing because of that. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
Yes. Yes. So it's not just you. It's not all about you. Even though we're the leader of the company, and as a good leader, we should be taking responsibility and accountability for everything that happens, right? And and speaking of John Maxwell, the way he says is when things go bad, we're going to take responsibility as the leader. But when things go good, we're going to give credit to the team, right? So that's really what we want to do as leaders. But realize that your bad decisions are affecting everybody, right? Your bad leadership is affecting everybody. Yes, it's affecting you as the leader. You're burning yourself out, just like Moses was. You're holding your business back. You're delaying products and service to your consumers, right? Like I could go on and on with that, but you're killing your team. You're killing them, and you're exhibiting, you're displaying mistrust. You don't trust them enough to do their job. You don't believe in them. You don't, and you could say your words. Oh, thank you so much. I trust you. I believe in you. And they're saying, no, you don't. Because if you did, you'd be delegating work to me. You'd be actually trusting me. You wouldn't be reloading the dishwasher.
Can I give you a scenario here?
Yes.
So let's say that you're a small business owner and you have like maybe 5 or 10 people working for you, and you're kind of stuck in a rut where, you're the guy who always solves all the problems. Everybody's getting paid, but you don't necessarily have the capital to really jump to the next step, right? To either hire that person or get some further education to grow. What is typically your first move for a business owner that is in one of those positions? Like they're just kind of stuck. They know they need to grow. They don't exactly know where they need to go to start to grow the business in the right direction. And they don't know how to delegate and help, seeking counsel from many sources, right, to get to the next place. Like what's your first piece of advice there?
So
And it
my
can't be
first,
listening to this podcast.
yes, listen to the podcast. So my first piece of advice is to figure out, why can't you afford to put another person on? Okay, so if you're running your business model correctly, okay, and I'm just going to give you general overview numbers here. Okay, so if you have a different model in business that doesn't fit this, don't write me any hate mail. Just let me know what business you're in.
Darren at
but but you should have, out of all the money that comes in, all the revenue that comes in, 30% is going to go to your fixed expenses, 30% is going to go to your labor, and 30% is going to go to your cost of goods. And if you could hold that model, you're going to leave 10% for profit. Now, if you have a model that for some reason you are short on staff and you need more staff, that should be pretty obvious, because your labor costs are probably 26%, 25%, 24%. You're not creeping up to the 30. And there probably is more room there. If for some reason your labor costs are 32, 35%, and you have minimum profits where you really can't afford to put somebody on, then something else in your model is wrong. Okay, either your cost of goods are too high, your fixed expenses are too high. And where I would start is looking at your P&L and trying to figure out, where am I in terms of, I'm going to use a word here called utilization. And utilization is a measure, it's a KPI, key performance indicator, that says this is how much my business could be making compared to how much my business is making, right? And when you look at that delta and you look at that difference, that will scream volumes to you, right? And I have some businesses that are operating real well, and they're like 70, 80% utilization, and that's great. I have some businesses that are down at 30, 40% utilization, and they're in the position that you just said there, where they can't afford to hire someone else. And that's because your business is so underutilized. And then we have businesses that run over 100% utilization. So that would be where I would start, is if you really are in a need to hire someone and their money is just not there, I wouldn't make things any worse. I would do a quick look at your numbers and try to look at those three categories. What are my fixed expenses? What are my cost of goods? And what are my labor costs? And again, if you have like some different type of model business that all you sell is labor and there is no really parts you're selling or something like that, just shoot me an email or something like that, and let me know what business model you're in, and maybe I could help you with that. But that's where I would start, right? And let's get the financial end of it ready, right? Did you do a break-even analysis when you first started your business? Do you know what that minimum is? And let's free up some cash so that if you really do need some help, you could do that. My second advice would be in the delegation model, and figure out not only what are you doing, and if you want, I could talk about how to really do this, right? And to give you a quick summary.
Yeah, give us high level at the moment.
Yeah, high level. Make a list, right? If you're a business owner, sit down and make a list of every single task that's required to deliver your product and service to the customer. Okay, so this is everything from paying the rent, paying the electric bill. Do you have an accountant you have to talk to? Who orders the products and service? Who sets the schedule for the labor? Who does payroll for you? Who turns on the lights in the morning? Who unlocks the door? Who shuts off the alarm system? If there's a water leak, who fixes that? Who calls the plumber, right? Who calls the repairman? Who talks to the customers? Who invoices them? And I want you to think of everything, right? So you should have a list, minimum 30 on your list. Probably is going to get up around 50 different things that are going on, somewhere between 30 and 50, right? And that's every single thing it takes for you to deliver your product and service. Then what I want you to do is I want you to put a circle around or a check mark next to every one of those that you're involved in any way, shape, or form, right? And most times when business owners do this, it's very enlightening to them, because you're going to find out that you're probably involved in 90% of it, and you shouldn't be, right? You should be involved in like 5% of it, not 90%. And that's where the delegation starts, right? And then we could look at your employees and see, what are they really doing, right? And it's funny, like we hire an employee for this specific job, but sometimes we give them 20 other things to do that they shouldn't be doing. right? And everything gets all messed up because everyone's just in reaction instead of really intuitively planning what's going forward, right?
So I don't want people to breeze over that, Darren, because if somebody's listening, like I think you should actually do this exercise. Write down all the tasks because I know it was eye-opening, for me when I did it. And when you start to think about, do I really need to be doing that, or is there someone that can be doing it? And then what happens is when you go to the next step, you're like, well, I do this task, but there's the other things that you have to know in order to do that task correctly. And that's when you start actually systemizing your business, right?
Right.
To make sure that the product is delivered consistently every time.
Correct.
So
And as a business owner, you shouldn't be involved in any of that stuff. Okay. Think of it like an airplane. Okay. Tim's here as a pilot. I'm a pilot. And if you've flown on a commercial airplane, right? I'm sure you have. There's people loading the baggage. There's people, serving you drinks. There's people, telling you to put the seatbelts on like this, right? Is the pilot doing that? No, the pilot's not down loading the bags, and the pilot doesn't come out in the middle of the flight and say, are your seatbelts on? And would you like a
Would
seven?
you like
Would
peanuts?
you like some? Would you like some peanuts and chips and that? Right? No, the pilot's up doing his job, right? His job is to plot the course of this flight and to safely there, right? The FAA, they break it down very simply, right? Our job comes down to one sentence.
Fly
It says
stuff.
the pilot in command is responsible for the safe execution of the flight. That means every aspect of that flight, safety wise, is the pilot's responsibility. And that's his job. His job is to check the weather, check the course, deal with aircraft traffic control, make sure things are running right in the airplane. He's not involved in the peanuts. He's not involved in loading your bags. He's not doing that. Right. And if he was trying to do that and he was micromanaging that, then he's not doing his job as pilot. Right. So you are the pilot of your business. And if you're into all these tasks, which you are, right? So don't get too depressed when you do this exercise and you find out that you're doing 80 to 90% of these or you're involved in them, because that's just until you learn this, that's the way we do this, right? Because you said it last week, Kyle. I think you get your badge of honor for labor, right?
Mhm.
But that's not it. We need you plotting the course. We need you to be responsible for the safe execution of your flight. That's what we want, right? Because as soon as your business is flying safely, now everything's going to start smoothing out.
Yeah. And I see us going into, one of my hopes is to go into the different reasons that we as business owners fail to delegate. I've probably checked off every one of those reasons in my experience. Um, and what I've experienced for myself is that being a people pleaser and in an industry where it's like you want to be one of the guys, uh, I find myself not wanting to look like the boss that is just leaving the guys to do the work while I go sit at the computer. But I've seen the detriment of that where I'm like, oh shoot, I've been working too long. Now we don't have any jobs lined up because I haven't finished my estimates and customers are waiting on them. So
Right.
now I've just like you started off saying, this is bad for you and the people. Now I've put our whole crew in a position where they're all going to be waiting on work because I wanted to be the good guy hanging out with the crew, working with them. And they're like, Kyle, what are we doing next?
Exactly. Exactly.
Hey, so if I could, I wanted to jump back to your first point really quickly, Darren, because you laid out a structure of 30, 30, 30, 10, right? And what's interesting is, and I'll fall on the sword here, if there's probably a lot of people out there that operated like I did for years, where I'd work, I'd make money. If I made more money, great. I could go to dinner more. I could take an extra vacation. I can do those sorts of things. And if I didn't, I just ran a little leaner that year with my spending. I didn't have any formal structure in place for the business designed to have profit. And then over the years, as you know, I dive into it, the reality is it's something like 90% of businesses never sell, right? And you can't sell a business if it doesn't actually make and show a profit, right? So how important is it that even as a small business owner, even if it's a 2 or 3 person company, that you structure it so that there is 10% profit. And what does that actually look like? I assume that's just a separate bank account where the profit goes.
Yeah. So it starts, and if you're a business owner listening to this, don't get upset.
He's got to
But this,
preface everything with that.
yes, I'm gonna.
He really doesn't want bad emails.
I
I don't
swear
want
I'm
the
your
hate
friend. I'm
comment.
trying to help you.
Trying to help you. Yes, my heart is in the right place. I promise.
Right.
But these are just the common pitfalls. I've been consulting businesses for 30 years now, so I see the same mistakes over and over again. But all this should have been planned before you even served your first customer. Okay, so before you even open the business, you should have done what's called a break-even analysis. And the break-even analysis would have said to you is this is my cost of goods, this is my expenses, these are the people I'm gonna have to hire, this is the labor. So if this is the cost of doing business, how many customers am I gonna have to serve, or how many widgets am I gonna have to sell to hit zero? Right? And that number could be 10, it could be 50, it could be 100. I don't know what it is for your business, right? But there's a number there. And before you opened your door, before day one, your first part of the planning is how do I get to that number, right? If I need to sell 50 widgets or I need to service 50 customers before I even get break even, how long is it going to take me to get 50 customers? Right. And if that's going to take you 3 months, do I have 3 months worth of operating expenses sitting in the bank? Right. Because I'm going to have to fund this business as we get to the 0 point. Right. And then once we get to zero, once we get to 50 customers and we're above our break even, at 51, we start making profit. At 52, we start making profit. And this happens, even though we say the 30-30-10, realize that at different times in the season, this is going to change. Okay, so if you look at my restaurant up in South Dakota, and we look at labor costs, okay, well, no matter what, I need a prep cook to come in at 5 a.m. and prep for us. I need a line cook. I need a hot side and a cold side. I need an expo. I need a dishwasher. I need a bartender, right? So, and I need servers, right? So I need 7 or 8 people, whether I serve one customer or I serve 30 customers or 50 customers or 100 customers, it doesn't matter. I need at least that bare bones minimum. So on weeks where we just get buried in snowstorms, we don't hit that number. And what ends up happening is my labor costs go way above the 30%, right? So it doesn't mean that we failed, because in the summer, we're going to be way below the 30%. And at the end of the year, what does this balance out to? What does this average to? So this should have been planned, Tim, right from day one. And a lot of times it isn't. And the reason it isn't is because we love what we do. Okay, so great cooks open restaurants, great mechanics open repair shops, great trial attorneys, they open their own practices, but no one ever taught them about business, right? They taught them how to be chefs, they taught them how to be trial attorneys, they taught them how to be mechanics. You didn't go to business school, so you just think in your head, boy, if I could just do this, if I could just do my craft, I know people would be happy, I know people would buy it, and I would be happy to serve these people. So your heart's in the right place. You just haven't sat down in the back end and done these numbers things. And it's not your fault. Just a lot of people make this mistake. But this is why at some point in time, hopefully there's someone in your life like Jethro, right? Who could say, this thing that you're doing is not good. And, Tim, you talked about a small business of like 4 or 5 people. But then as that grows, it doesn't change. It just gets worse. And let's bring this back to Moses for a minute, right? Moses' first training first he got talked into going into business, right? God said to him, hey, I want you to do this. And Moses was like, I can't do this. I can't even speak well, right? Like, how about my brother Aaron take it?
Go get your brother.
Yeah. And God was like, oh, so you think I'm making a mistake here? Oh, right. But God put him into training, right? So his first customer he had to deal with was Pharaoh, right? Right. Just go talk to this Pharaoh guy and work things out with him. But then all of a sudden, talking to Pharaoh led into talking to more people. And then all of a sudden he had to deal with Pharaoh's army. And then all of a sudden he had to deal with all the people of Israel. So Moses' businesses grew very, very quickly. But when I started my business and when you started your business, I was like, it was me incorporated. It was just me, right? That was it. Like I was the sole employee and I did everything. So I had to answer the phones and I had to deal with the customers and I had to fix the cars and I had to road test the cars and I had to call the plumber when the water leaked and I was unlocking the door and locking the door. So when you start a small business, you know how to do everything. And then all of a sudden, so many customers start coming in, I can't do everything anymore. So I hire my first employee. But because I know how to do everything, I just task them with like one thing, and then I look over them and say, you're putting the spoons in the wrong spot. You're not loading that dishwasher correctly, right? And you start micromanaging, and they're doing their job, but you're overseeing it, and then you're still doing everything. And then you hire another person, you do the same thing. You micromanage. You hire another person, and at some point in time, you have to say to yourself, maybe me doing everything is not good. And that's what Jethro said, right? Jethro said to Moses, what you're doing is not good.
Yeah.
And you could see in my example, it's not good for the customers, it's not good for the team, right? And that's what Jethro said. He said, for you and the people, this isn't good, right? Like all around, this model is failing. And you need someone in your life to tell you that, right? And maybe
So
it's us.
I'm glad you brought us back to that point because Kyle's been shoveling coal into this locomotive, getting ready to let it rip on the tracks. So that probably puts us right back to where you were going next, right, Kyle?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's funny because it's Moses' reply to Jethro. If we back up to verse 15, uh,
This is
he
Exodus 18:15, right?
yeah, Exodus chapter 18, verse 15. And I'm in I think, what am I in? NIV or NLT? NLT. I got four Bibles on my desk, so I never know which one I'm reading from. Um, but Moses replied, it says, because the people come to me and get a ruling from God, when a dispute arises, they come to me, and I am the one who settles the case between the quarreling parties. I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions. And it just hit me when I read that. I'm like, wait a second, there's two me's and two I's in just those two sentences there. So
Yes.
we see here that obviously Moses thinks that he's the only one that can do this job. And it's like, yeah, I mean, we've all admitted here we've been guilty of that at some point. Um, and so there still tends to be this sort of tendency to just do it yourself. For me, it's been at points because of pride, I'll do it better, or it's going to take me too long to train somebody, so I'll just do it myself. I can get it done quicker, right? So how have you guys addressed this in the businesses that you've coached, just in terms of, I guess I would call it the difference between the employee mindset and the business owner mindset? How do you coach people up to that point? Because that's what we'll see here in a few verses, is that Jethro basically tells Moses, you need to teach the people. You, in fact, why don't I just go ahead and read that, because that'll lead us right into this.
What verse are you in?
So chapter 18, look at verse 19. Jethro, again pulling no punches, says, now listen to me. I love that. And he says, and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God. So, yeah, okay, something of what you're doing is right, bringing their disputes to him. Verse 20, though, he says, teach them God's decrees and give them his instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. But, verse 21, select from all the people some capable, honest men who fear God and hate bribes, appoint them as leaders. And so this is where like Jethro really starts to teach Moses the solution to his problem. And one of the main solutions there is you need to teach the people. And just kind of being the devil's advocate here in my own business, it's like, yeah, but they're employees. They might just be here for a paycheck. How can I ensure that they're going to give it as much heart and attention as I will. Go ahead,
You,
Mr. M. I see that the wheels
well,
turning.
let me share a thought really quick before
Go
it
ahead.
explodes out of you there, Darren.
You're right.
Because what I hear a lot is, hey, I don't want to train these people up because, then they'll leave me, right? And I think it was Dave Ramsey that said something one time that kind of stuck with me, which was you should train people good enough so that they can leave you, but treat them well enough so they won't want to.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's great.
And I always like that.
Yeah.
So because we don't live in fear.
absolutely. So, Kyle, when you say that they're just there for a paycheck, okay, I want to say this correctly because there's a lot of people that are working for companies that they're just there for a paycheck, okay? But we're the ones who hired those people, okay? So if we hired someone as an employee that's just there for a paycheck,
Mhm.
we didn't hire correctly, okay? So I'm going to put the blame on us for that. And you shouldn't be hiring people unless you're so desperate for laborers. You don't hire people who want more than that, right? And it's up to us as leaders. Leaders are developers of people, right? And that's not just in skill. It's in skill. It's in values. It's the way to live. It's things like that. It's funny. My wife used to talk to all the people in the restaurant, and we had like let's round it to 50 people, 40, 50 people working for us. But in a restaurant, you have a lot of kids working for you, right? And especially we're in a college town, so we have a lot of college kids. But Nancy would teach them about saving, and she would say, "Look, the summer is like the bounty, right? Because there's so many people here. You guys are making money hand over fist with your tips. But remember, February, March are coming, right? Those are our slow months. And so how do we save that money?" And she would counsel these people, and she would school these people, and she would mother these people, right? Think of it like that. But she was developing them, right? It wasn't just about the dishwasher showing up because he needs a paycheck. Yeah, show up so you need the paycheck, but then let me teach you how to manage your money properly. Let me teach you about Dave Ramsey and some of his principles that he teaches. Let me teach you why it's important to put some money away, right? And she would develop the people, whether they're dishwashers, cooks, servers, doesn't matter, right? Nancy, it was more than just a job, right? It was more than just, okay, so he's the bartender, big deal, right? He understands. No, he doesn't understand. He just shows up and he serves drinks and he makes his money. But what does he do with the money, right? Has anyone ever taught him? He understands bartending, but does he understand financial, right? Do you understand how to grow your finances? Do you understand how to save money? Do you understand why you should be tithing? Do you understand, like, there's so much to this, right? So if you're really a leader, I want you to ask yourself, how are you developing your people, right? Just like here, um, in the verse Kyle just read, where it said, teach the people, right? He's telling him to develop other leaders, to develop people. Don't just, put them here for a paycheck, right? Hey, could you solve all these problems? He says, put people over tens, over hundreds, over thousands, but and I'll give you a paycheck on Friday. No, he's developing those people to be better people, right? And that's what we want to do. So
Well, let me
before
jump in real quick too, Mr. Emmett, and just say that I used to always think that like the purpose of my business was to just grow this big thing and really it was all about pride and pomp, you know. But over time, God showed me that my business, the skills that he had given me in construction was to provide for my family, but number two, to raise up leaders, that it was so much more than just padding my bank account and my pride, you know.
absolutely,
And so it's really just a good place, I think, for us to challenge you out there, business owners, to just pray and ask God, like, what really is your mission for my business, God? What is your purpose for my business? And I can almost guarantee it's going to be something along those lines because God's whole purpose is his kingdom and growing his kingdom. It says a king's glory is a growing population. And so his glory is for using you to grow the other people in his kingdom and grow more people into his kingdom. And so, yeah, just wanted to jump in with that. It's just something God's revealed to me, and I love to present that to business owners because there's so much more to it than just trying to survive this world and make enough money to get through it.
Yes, absolutely. So now if you're a business owner watching this, I'm going to give you a practical exercise that you could do tomorrow. Okay, so you could start this tomorrow in your business, and this will help you start down the road of development of your people. Okay, and this is what I want you to do. You're going to be the pilot. Okay, and even more than that, right? You'll eventually be just the pilot, but let's look at things different. So usually I ask when I work with businesses, I usually have them start with 1 hour. But I recently worked with a manager who has a staff of about, let's say, 10 or 12 people that he runs. And he goes, an hour? He goes, I can't do an hour. I go, do 15 minutes. I said, you could give me 15 minutes. And he said, okay. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go into work tomorrow morning, and I want you to have a talk with your staff. And I don't care if you use 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 1 hour, right? You decide what you want to use. But what I did in my business when I started this was I said to my staff, I said, we open at 8 o'clock in the morning. Those were our operating hours. We started at 8. And I said from 8 to 9. So I started with 1 hour. If you could only do 15 minutes, do 15 minutes. But I said, I'm going to come in. I'm going to be here. I said, but you can't talk to me. You can't ask me any questions. I'm not going to deal with any customers. I'm not going to answer any phones. I'm not going to do anything but observe. I'm going to watch you run my business for 1 hour, right? And I want to see how you handle the customers. I want to see what you say on the phone. I want to watch what you do to write up, our initial customers. How are you serving the people? How are you serving each other as a team? And I'm going to observe this just for 1 hour. And at the end of the hour, at 9 o'clock, what I would like to do is we're going to have a meeting together. And I'm just going to share with you what were our wins, right? What did you do excellent? And what would I have done different, right? And the reason I phrase it like that is because I never want to say you did it wrong, right? Just because I did it differently, it doesn't mean my way is right and your way is wrong. But this is how I would have handled that situation. And then once 9 o'clock comes, just jump back in and it's business as usual, and you're off and running. And I don't think your presence out of the physical labor force for 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour is going to really affect you. But what it's going to do is, because you're not a frontline soldier anymore, and for 1 hour, you're going to be acting really as a general. You're going to be strategically observing how your team is acting and how they're working. You're going to see things that you've never seen before. Okay, you're going to notice things that you've never noticed before. And you're going to go, I didn't realize they were doing that. And I didn't realize these customers were looking at it this way. And all of a sudden now you're becoming a pilot. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you're starting to understand the weather that's affecting the flight. And you're understanding the terrain that we might have to avoid. And you're going to learn how to talk to air traffic control better, right? So you're going to start really piloting this aircraft. That's what you're going to do. And all of a sudden you're going to see things through different eyes. But what's going to happen is you're going to start developing your people. At the 9 o'clock meeting, you're going to start training up your people. And all of a sudden, your people are going to, stand, trust me, they're going to all stand a little bit taller, because you're going to let me run the business, right? Even if it's for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever you decide. But you're showing them that you trust them, right? And don't set them up for failure. Set them up for success, right? And show them that you trust them. And trust me, they're going to want to do a good job for you, okay? And because you're putting this trust in them to do this, pretty soon they're not going to be there for a paycheck, okay? Because they're going to say, hey, you know what? Kyle really values me. Kyle sees potential in me. He's told me he sees potential in me. Nobody in my life has ever said that they see potential in me. And all of a sudden, I'm no longer here for a paycheck, right? Well, so that's a practical exercise you could do. You could start that tomorrow. And what you're going to see is after doing it for a month, at the 9 o'clock meeting, there's not going to be any correction anymore because your staff is going to be doing it just the way you want it done. And then you're going to go to 10 o'clock. You're going to expand this. And once they're doing it perfect at 9, then you're going to go from 8 to 10. And then someday you're going to go to 8 to 11. And then someday you're going to go to 8 to 12. And then someday it's going to be a whole day. You're going to let them run the business for the whole day. Right. And this is how you start transitioning yourself into being an owner, is just like this. Right. And Kyle, what you were saying about showing up for a paycheck. Now you're moving from what John Maxwell would call level 1 leadership to level 2 leadership. Okay, John Maxwell would say, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And when you do this for your employees, you're showing them that you care about them. And then you move into instead of a level 1 positional leader, into a level 2 relational leader. And then nobody's there for a paycheck anymore. And now when they're there for a paycheck, they work for you because they have to. When you get to level 2, they work for you because they want to. Right. And then it goes on. There's 3 more levels after that. Right. But just that one shift from level 1 to level 2 is huge. Right. So a shout out to John Maxwell. If you haven't read his book, The 5 Levels of Leadership, that's where that comes from. But try that. Right. So everybody, if you're listening to this call, give it a try tomorrow. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and do it every day. Right. So either 8 to 8:45 or 8 to 8:30, or if you could pull off 8 to 9, do 8 to 9. Right. The place isn't going to burn down. You're going to be fine. You're there. If a real emergency happens, you could jump back in. You're there. But trust your people and start developing them. And as you do this, do me a favor, put something in the comments or reach out to us and let me know how this is working. Let us know how this is working and how we could, help guide you maybe more in this. But there's a good practical exercise you could do tomorrow.
Yeah, amen, amen. And they've literally done studies that have shown that people value feeling valued way more than they value a little pay bonus. Or, I mean, they've tried these things. They've tried all the cash incentives and all the little pay bumps and whatnot to try and gain buy-in, and they've proven that it doesn't work fractionally as well as entrusting people with leadership and with responsibilities for the sake of buy-in.
Absolutely. Just think about, Kyle, when Moses came up to you and said, I'm going to put you in charge of these 10 people, right? And just like that's what your Jethro principle taught him, right? So here Moses was doing everything himself. And now all of a sudden he says to Kyle and to Tim, I want you to serve over these 10 people and you over these 10 people. And then as you grew and you did good with those 10 people, then it was people over hundreds, people over thousands, right? So he tiered this leadership structure. But Moses had to develop those leaders. And those leaders, when Moses came to him and said that, they were like, really? You're going to let me judge some of these? You're going to let me give them advice? You trust me enough to do that?
Yeah.
I'm going to do a good job for you.
Yeah, so good. Tim, any final thoughts as we close up here?
No, actually, I was really just curious to what your answer would be if Moses came down and asked you to take a leadership role after he had walked up into that mountain covered in fire and lightning and clouds and came down with his skin illuminated one time. You're like, yeah, sign me up, or maybe you could find someone else.
Right, totally. Yeah, and I mean that points to a good point that I think we'll cover next time. Just the delineation from leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, and leaders of tens. I had read that before in scripture, but it had never really caught my eye. And our pastor here in Colorado had talked about that, how the different levels of leadership. And at first, I hated that because again, going back to pride and ego, I just always saw myself as like, one day I'm going to get there and I'm going to be this leader of thousands and tens of thousands, and it was just for the sake of pride. But scripture says that God resists the proud but gives grace to the humble. And God has humbled me and stuffed me down enough times to where now I appreciate the fact that my little business is me and one other guy that works full time for me, and then of course our subcontractors and whatnot. But it's like, oh, this is kind of nice. I don't have 1,000 employees to keep after and try and figure out the HR disasters for that comes with that, you know? So now that's not negating the quality and the value of that. It just, God had to help me accept that at least at this point in my life, I'm a leader of like tens and maybe ones or twos, you know? And perhaps in time he'll grow me to the place of a leader of hundreds or thousands, but if not, that's okay. I'm thankful that he's got me to a place where I'm okay with that. And so I guess all that to say, be where you are, where God has you right now in your business. Do that really well. If he's got you leading one or two people, do that really well. Pour into those people. Those are the people that God has entrusted to your leadership because he loves you, because he loves that person, and because he has an awesome will for both of you. And so do that well. If he's got you in a place where you're leading thousands, then do that really well. Whatever it is, God sees something in you and in the people that he's entrusted to your leadership. And so I think what we're seeing here in scripture in Exodus 18 is a call to high responsibility in leadership. That again, everything rises and falls on leadership. God called Moses to lead these millions of people because he saw, like, hey, Moses is surrendered to me and has humbled himself to me, so I know I can do great things through him among my people. So God sees that for each of us on this call. He sees that for each of you listening to this episode, and he's got awesome plans for us. So next time we're going to go into talking about I think those delineations and into some of the challenges that people face and why they still won't delegate. I, Mr. M has had this conversation with me for over 20 years, and there's still times where I revert back, and he's like, "Come on, we've conquered this hill already. Let's move forward." So we're
Yeah.
gonna not belabor that too much, but dig into that a little bit, and then we'll continue on. So as we close here, yeah, we just pray for you, like in Colossians 3, verse 9. It might be chapter 1, verse 9. I always forget now. But Paul says, we pray that God will reveal his entire will to you, that he will give you spiritual wisdom and understanding, so that you may produce every kind of good fruit, and that you may continue to grow as you learn to know him better and better. We love you guys. Thank you guys for joining us. God bless you in your businesses and in your leadership. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.